Hello Internet and welcome to my Mega Dropdown menu. One of you guys asked me if I could recreate the Mega Dropdown used on the Boston Globe's website, which this person told me is a great example of responsive web design. So I decided, what the heck, I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to do, I didn't look at any of the code on the Boston Globe website. I'm just purely going to look at what it looks like and recreate the entire thing in this one video. So what I'm going to do right now is jump into the future and show you what I complete by the end of this video, and then we'll make it. And here we are, guys. This is the final piece, and you could actually see here if you looked at the time, see it's 11:57. This is what I have at the end of the tutorial, and this is the Mega Dropdown we created. Here is the Boston Globe's version of it, and you can see that both of them automatically are going to scale, and it's a fluid sort of design. If we go and scale that down, you can see that it automatically scales and stays in sync no matter how small that I would make it. Now, of course, eventually it's going to break, but you can see that for the most part it sticks together really nice. So now we're going to go over and write all the code and show you exactly how this was made. Okay, so you guys saw the final Mega Dropdown, and this is basically what it is on the Boston Globe's website. Don't think I'm doing anything here that's bad. What I'm going to do is recreate this whole entire thing, or at least I hope to. Now, what I did ahead of time was I went and spaced out and measured every single thing on the website. So I figured out there was 19 pixels here, don't know if you can see that, which is going to measure out to 1.9%. This is going to be a fluid design, and the entire bar is 979 pixels. I then measured out this is 113 pixels, which equals out to 11.5% of the total space allowed, and 19 and 19, which is 3.8, and all of that. So that is what I did ahead of time. So I did that for the entire menu bar that we have right here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all those numbers and translate that into this dropdown that you see right here, right there. There's the dropdown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the basic HTML, and this is layout text.html, and I'm going to throw in my own little things inside of here. What I like to do ahead of time is almost always I will create a div, and it will get the name of wrapper. And of course, all of the code that I have here is available in a link in the description for this video. And I like to close this off so I know where this is, end of wrapper, and there we go. So there we go. I got a wrapper that goes around every single thing that is in the body section. Now what I have to do is create the navigation bar. So I'm going to do that by creating an unordered list, and I'm going to give this the class name of nav. And hopefully the way that I set this up, this is going to allow you to create pretty much any type of dropdown. And I'm going to close off that. Alright, so inside of this now, what I have to do is create all of my list items. So there's a list item, and I am going to, I see no reason to give this a class name. I am, however, going to provide a link inside of here. And I'm going to do sort of the bare minimum. I'm not going to put the actual links inside of here. I'm just going to do this. And close that off, and I'm going to have this be news, even though this is uppercase right here. I'm going to style that in the CSS, and then I'm going to close off that link. Now I need to create a whole bunch of these guys, so let's create this, and then let's put Metro inside of here. And then while we have this open, why don't I just go and throw a Mega Dropdown inside of the Metro section. I'm not going to do it for every single one of them because everything's going to be exactly the same. So right after the Metro link, inside of the link area here, I'm going to start creating the dropdown. Now here is the dropdown in all of its glory. So I have to come in here and put a divider inside of here, an article section, another article section, a bunch of links, and then a whole bunch of other links to all of the other different parts of the website. Zoom in here a little bit. So, well, I'm going to decide I want to put a div around the entire thing because whenever this dropdown comes down, it has a little bit of a text shadowing that shows up. So like this, and you can see there's a little bit of a shadow, and there's a box around it and a whole bunch of other things. So I'm definitely going to want to create a class here that is just going to be that. And I'm just going to call this nav main just because that's the first thing that comes to mind. And we can close that off. Now inside of nav main, the very first thing I see here, whenever I look at my art where I went and measured everything, is there's a divider here. So I'm going to throw a divider in there myself. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to give this the class name. And these names mean nothing. They're just things I use. So This isn't like something that's in stone that you have to type in Nav Divider. It's just something I made up. Alright, so I got my Nav Divider. Now what I gotta do? Well, I have to create this art section, which has a little image, and it has a little title, and it has an author's name. So I'm going to come in again, create another div, and I'm going to give this the class name of Nav Focus Art for article. And there's that div. Now I need to come in here and throw an image inside of here. So I'm going to go image, class, and this time I'm going to use images that you guys can get a hold of very easily. Sorry about in the last tutorial I went and used my own custom things. I'm going to call this nav art image. And then the source directory for this is I'm going to use http lorem pixel. I use a couple of these and they just throw in junk folders, and what you can do is just put in whatever you want your height and width to be, and it's automatically going to go out there and grab an image for you that fits those sizes. So that's all you need to do. And then techniques like this is going to give me like a technological picture, so I'm just going to throw that in there. You can go to their website and they'll show you all kinds of things. And I'll just say article image just to keep this nice and simple. And then I'm going to close that off. So there is my image. And now what I need to do is throw in a author. So I'm going to use a span right here and class name. And I'm going to call this nav art author. And let's put Eric Schmidt inside of here. You guys are going to see there's a little bit of a trend here to what I'm using. Whoops, span. And let's throw a break statement inside of there. And then I'm going to throw another span inside of here. Class is equal to, and this one's going to be nav art title. And the name of this is going to be We Messed Up the Comments again. And there we are. And that is all I need to do for this. And there is the closing div that I have for this. So I can come in here and say something like end of that. Well, now if we look over here, we can also see that there's actually two dividers inside of here, or at least that's how I saw it. So these are equal width apart from this. So this times 2 equals the division right there. So what can I do with that? Well, I could either put 2 of those dividers in there, or I could just put in another one. And I'm deciding I want to put in another one. And I'm just working like off the cuff here, so that's what's going on. Alright, so Nav Divider, and why don't I call this Nav Divider 2? And then what I'll do is I'll just double up that guy, and it'll allow me to have a lot of flexibility. So then what we have? Well, we have another one of these, like this. I'm going to go like this, and throw in another focused article, and here I'm just going to change this lorem pixel. The size is going to be exactly the same, except I'm going to put in animals. Here I could put in my name, and I could call this something like why I can't answer comments anymore. If you're not catching on to the trend here, YouTube messed up the comments again, and it's almost impossible for me to answer comments. So just to let everybody know, if you want me to answer comments, put the comments, no matter what the video is, on my latest video, and I will be able to find it. Okay, so let's go, and otherwise I will never be able to find it unless YouTube changes that. So there's another Nav Divider, and you can see there's the Nav Divider that I just threw in there, Nav Divider 2. And now I need to create this section, which has all of our headlines right there. So I just need to come in and create another div. Class is equal to, and I'm going to call this nav headlines, end of nav headlines, and there we go. And now I need to create all of these. Well, they're just a bunch of divs. That's all they are, or at least that's what I want them to be. So there's just a whole bunch of divs. So just come in here, and we're going to target this one up here that has the red by actually using first child and other things like that, as you're going to see when we get into the CSS. But I like to do the HTML ahead of time. So we're just going to go div class is equal to, and then basically I'm just giving names to things, classes and so forth, whenever I think I'm going to need to edit them. Well, there's all sorts of things going on here styling wise, so I think I need a class. I think I need to edit it, so I'm going to do that. And I'm using the globe sort of style here, more headlines, and sometimes I'm deviating from that. Alright, and now I just need to create a whole bunch of these for all the different headlines that we have. And I just went in there and pasted all those in there. You can see there are all of the different headlines that I want to use inside of my mega dropdown. Alright, so now that we have that set up, what I need to do is come over here. You can see there's another divider right here, and then we're going to have additional links to other parts of the website. So I need to get another Nav Divider 2, which is a doubled up divider. Throw that in here, right behind that guy. And now I need to create my Nav Links. Now I want to keep them all inside of a master div so that I can style all those. And I'm going to call this div class is equal to, and this is going to be Nav Links. And just bear with me because I'm creating, like I said, I'm just creating this as I see it. So my names might not be perfect for what I'm doing here. It's just the very first thing that comes to mind is what comes out on the page. So there's that, Nav Links. And I'm going to show you everything here real time, except for one thing. If I'm playing around with, okay, should the text size be 0.7 EMs or 0.8 EMs, I'm just going to skip that part. But everything else is going to be 100% live. Throw in another div. So I'm going to call this Nav Link. And this is going to be an individual one. And this is going to be more in news, because that's what the Boston Globe has there. And I just went in there and threw all those links inside of it, and there we have them all nice and organized. So then I basically just need to do the same thing again and create another Nav Links sort of section here right next to the other one. I'm just copying what I see. That's all I'm doing. I'm just breaking everything down. Everything's done. I did this in Illustrator. You could do this in Inkscape. I have tutorials on Illustrator and Inkscape, so there's that. And I went in there and threw additional divs inside of it, and there they are all sorted out. So what's left to do here? Well, pretty much nothing. Here is this closing div, and there's this closing div, and then this is going to be the closing part for the drop-down. So that's what that is. So now what I need to do is just put in the rest of the links for the navigation bar across the top of the screen. And I just went ahead and threw those in there, so there we go. Arts, business, sports, opinion, da-da-da-da-da. So there's the rest of the navigation bar, and that is all of the HTML. That is all you're going to need to do. So now what I need to do is first save it. We can jump over here and look at exactly what this looks like. And you can see it looks like a mess. Okay? There it is. There is every single thing that I just created. So what I need to do now is come in here and style everything based off of this little design that I have right here. So we're going to create our CSS file. And a lot of the things that I do here in the beginning, I do on every single web page. So I'm going to target every single element right now. And I'm going to add in border boxing. And what that's going to do for us is whenever we define an element and we say it's going to be this width and this height, it is automatically going to fit any padding and margins and borders and so forth inside of that space. Another thing that I also always do for every element when it first starts off is I give everything padding of 0 and a margin of 0. Then I can style all my elements individually and just worry about them individually. Let's come in here and create our font family for our whole entire site. I didn't even look at what the globe is using. I'm just using this because this looks good. Sans serif is the default font I'm going to use here for the entire thing. I'm going to come in for my background, and what do I want to do? Let's try F5, 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 just for the heck of it. And then what I want to do is document wide. I want to set my font size to 62.5%. And I've talked about this in previous tutorials. Basically what this is going to allow me to do is whenever I type in 1.6 EM, that is going to be equivalent to 16 points. So it's just a little math trick that I use, and that's pretty much all you need to know about it. And that's just going to allow me to do exactly what I just showed you there, because I don't know, it's just something I've always done. So let's go and now let's create our wrapper. Font size, and there you go, 1.6 EM. Now I can use that document wide across my whole entire every single element on my page, and I'm going to go padding, and I'm going to go 2 EM. This really doesn't have anything to do with the website at this point. These are just defaults that I want to use. So if I want my wrapper to automatically center, I'm going to go 0 in auto, and then I can do a width of 95% so that it's going to center, but it is also always going to have like a little bit of a margin on the side. And background color, and let's make this white, and there we go. Now as things go on here, we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty, and now that's basically what we're going to do. So we're going to be targeting the navigation bar right now. So we can jump over here, and let's just come in here and look at what we got. See, our first class is nav, so we're going to be targeting that guy. So I'm going to go nav, and the styling I'm going to provide. Well, first off, I want my background to be white. I want the width to automatically adjust, so I'm going to have this be 100%. I'm doing a fluid layout here, so as things move, everything is going to automatically fit. Then I'm going to have a height, and as I played around with this, 43 pixels looks good, and that's based off of my measurements, all the stuff I'm doing up here. Now, if I want to be able to position the drop-down menu underneath the navigation bar, I'm going to have to set position to a relative. So the positioning for the drop-down that comes underneath the navigation bar is going to be relative to the position of the navigation bar. And then I'm going to come in and put a 1 pixel solid bar underneath of it, and I'm going to have this be B2, BE, B5, and I got that off the Wiki Colors website. Just type in Wiki Colors in Google and you will get that, and that is a gray color. So now let's continue on here, getting into the more of the nitty-gritty. Now I want to target the individual list items that are inside of our navigation bar, and that is how I do it. And if we just come in here and we look, and there's Nav and there's LI, so I'm targeting this guy right here. So let's come back over here and let's start styling it. Well, the first thing, I know that I do not want any bullets to show up for this list item, so I'm going to set that to none. Next thing I'm going to do is I want everything to float to the left side of the screen so that everything is going to fit real nice. I then want to text align everything to the center for all of our list items. I want the width, I have 10 items here, so I'm going to have this be 10%, so each of them is going to, each list item in our navigation bar is going to take up 10%. Another thing I can do, and I have that in there as a default because I could also use calc 100%, and this is automatically going to adjust for our fluid design, but some browsers don't allow this to work. So in that situation, we'll just use width 10% and see how that works out. And as far as I'm concerned, that is all I'm going to need to do for our navigation bar, for at least for the list items. Now I specifically want to come in here, and we can come over here and reload this to see what's happening, and you can see there are our list items. Okay, so now what I want to do is come in here to the actual items and style those. How I do that is just go Nav, LI, and, well, let's go Nav, LI, and A. So we're going to style the links within our list item. So we're going to go with a color here, and I'm going to use, like I said, I'm just pulling that from the Wiki Colors website, and a color that looks nice, that's what I'm going to use. And these individual links in the Boston Globe website look like they are bold. See, there they are. They look bold to me anyway, so I'm going to make the font weight on these bold. Font size, don't know. This is where I'm going to have to play around a little bit. So let's do this, and let's look at this. All right, so reload. All right, so now they're gray, and I don't know. Let's try something like 1.6 EM. Reload. Ooh, that's way too small. Let's try 7. Reload. I don't know. Starting to look okay. So let's just leave it that way. And of course we can come back and change it if we decide. Get rid of that text decoration because that looks terrible. Those are the underlines underneath of all of our links. And let's have our line height be exactly the same as our height for our little bar that we have there. So that's 43 pixels again. Let's do padding of 0 and 20 pixels. And height, remember I said, is 43 pixels, so let's just make sure that that fits inside of there. And you can see here, see, 43 pixels for the navigation bar. That's where this is coming from. And I wanted to also go and make sure that those are uppercase, because remember I didn't put them in as uppercase whenever I first created it. And now if we reload it, you can see that it's starting to look pretty good. So yeah, there's the Boston Globe, there's me, okay? Looking pretty good. So now what do I need to target? Well, I need to start targeting what's going to happen whenever these guys are hovered over. Right now nothing happens. And on the Boston Globe website, whenever you hover over them, they put little borders on the left and the right. So let's do the same thing. So I'm going to go Nav, target my list items, specifically target them when they are hovered over. And when they are hovered over, I'm going to say that I want my border on the right. And I'm going to make that 1 pixel. And they're going to be solid, and I want to use this consistent color. Let's use this guy right here. So we're going to use that grayish color, and I'm going to do the same thing on the left. So that's whenever those list items are hovered over, they are going to automatically throw a border on there, just like the Boston Globe site does. And this isn't going to be exactly like the Boston Globe. It's just going to be very, very close. And if you guys play around with it a little bit more, you can make it perfect, or you can just use this to create whatever you want to create. So now what I want to do is I want to show my drop-down box whenever the individual items are hovered over. So I'm going to go list item hover, and I'm going to target a div. And in this situation, I'm going to display my div, the drop-down box, as block. So it's going to show whenever it's hovered over, and it's not going to show whenever it's not hovered over. So now what I need to do is position my menu drop-down relative to my nav bars. So I'm going to go nav and list item, div, so the div that's contained inside of the list item. Let's go over here and look at that just to make sure we know what we're talking about. So here's Metro. This is the one link that has a drop down, and I'm specifically coming in here to get this div. So we will position it absolutely. So absolute. And remember, we're going to be doing this because we set this position right here to relative. So because that is relative, this absolute positioning is going to be based off of that navigation bar. So I'm going to say that I want it to be left 0. I want it to be exactly where the navigation bar is. And I want the top to be, don't know. I'm like 43, so let's just try 40 pixels. So that's where it's going to be positioned. And let's reload it. And let's see. That's kind of a mess. I don't know. We'll come back to that and look and see what we need to change here for that. Let's just change it to, I don't know, 41 or something like that. Let's see what happens. We also want to say that this nav shouldn't show unless it is hovered over. So again, we're targeting the drop down box. And you can see if we reload that. See, now it doesn't show. Now it does show. Oh, look at that. See, there it is. And it looks like it's going to line up nicely whenever it's down there. All right, so what else do we need to do with that div? Well, we're going to have to give it a background color maybe. Let's just say background color, and let's just make that white again. We just type in white. You can do whatever you want to do. Let's go and set our padding on this div. Let's just say something like 10 pixels and 10 pixels just to see how that looks. We might come back and change that. And remember also the Boston Globe had a box shadow. So I'm just going to go box shadow for now, and later on if I have to come in here and define all the different box shadows for all the different browser types. RGBA, and I'm going to say that I just want this to be black, and I'm going to change the opacity on this guy, so 0. Let's say it's like 40% opacity, and we'll see how that looks. And then overflow, we want to hide overflow. We want to hide anything that goes outside of that div when it pops up there, just so it looks nice and neat. And these are like things we always do whenever we're working with these sorts of stylings and so forth. As far as I know, that is the end of the navigation bar styling for now. So what I want to do now is come in here and actually create the navigation bar. See, everything looks pretty okay. You can see the little box shadow there. And now I need to style all these guys, which means I need to look at this and figure out how exactly that's going to be styled. Well, the very first thing I want to do is, let's come in and let's look. There's nav main. What do I want to do with nav main, which is going to be the box that surrounds the entire thing? I'm going to go nav main. First thing I want to do is I want to make sure that it's exactly the same width as my navigation bar that contains it. So I'm going to have that be 100%. Because that's what the Globe's website does. And then I'm also going to come in here and throw a border around it, again because the Globe's site does this. And I'm going to say solid, and no, I didn't. I did save it. Okay, so there it is, and there is our gray that we've been using over and over again. So let's just use that. As far as I know, that is all I need to do for the div that contains everything in our dropdown. Next thing I want to do. Well, we have these dividers right here. So there is the very first Nav Divider, and it's going to take up 1.9% of the screen. So we'll go Nav Divider, target that guy. We want to display inline block because we want to be able to set things like padding and margins and borders and so forth, but we want it to act like an inline item so that it doesn't jump to the next space, because everything, of course, goes from left to right. So if it jumped down there, then that would be a bad thing. And then we'll say our width, and I know I'd put 1.9, but for now I'm just going to take it down just a little hair below that and see how that works, because that normally ends up working better. And now that comes into our actual art section here, or the article section with the pictures and the name for the authors and all that stuff. So that is called Nav Focus Art. So we'll target that guy, and again we're going to display this inline block again. Of course, because it goes from left to right. We want our width in this situation. What do I have it set for here? I have it set for 11.5. So let's make that 11.5, exactly what it is. See, the dividers, I normally take a hair down, and everything else I keep right on exactly what it shows or what I measured out before. Vertical alignment, I want this to be top. I want it to be, at the top of the div that's inside of. And my text, I want that to have an alignment of center. Again, because that's what the Globe has. So we do that, and let's go in here. See, this is centered. Centered, okay. but for the most part I'm looking at this. So, and this is centered also. Alright, so as far as I know, that's all I need to do for that guy. So now let's go in and target the author and the title. And of course I could come in here and do them separately, or I could do them at the same time. And so I will nav art author and nav art title, like that, if I felt like doing it that way. If I don't plan on changing anything, that works beautifully. And we'll go display inline block. And the padding on this, let's just make it 10 pixels and 0. Whoops, padding. And let's make it 10 pixels and let's make it 0 pixels. And then I want to do some more specific things. So let's say our font right here, there's the author's name, and this is bigger than that. So let's now go in and get the specifics rather than the generic. So I'm going to go nav art author, and what am I going to change on this? Well, one thing, let's make our font size. Let's make it 0.9. I don't know. Let's see if that works out. And then we'll go color, and in this situation we'll make it red because that's what the globe does. Now the actual article name is a little bit different, so we'll go nav art title, and we'll change the font size for that to 1.4 EM. And then the image, which is this picture right here, let's come in here. What do I need to style on that? Well, I can go nav art image, and I can't think anything. I don't have any borders around it. Whoops, display. I know that I want it to be inline block though. So there's nothing else that I can think of I want to do with that, so I'm going to let it be inline block and not style anything else. Of course I could throw a border around it or padding or whatever, but right now I don't need nothing. And that brings us to the divider that comes, remember, here are the dividers. This divider, it's twice as big as the other one. So we'll go nav divider. Let's go and copy that, and we'll throw that inside of there. And this is called Nav Divider 2. Remember, I changed the name slightly. Still going to be inline block, and let's chuck this up to 3.8%, just like that. And that brings us to our headlines. Here are our headlines, and we need to style those as well. Not much work here. We'll just go Nav Headlines. And what do we need to do? Well, we need to do display inline block again, because every one of those needs to be set that way. Our width, I already went and measured that, 34.5%. You can see like most of the work's done here, and believe me, this doesn't take long to do. I'm just measuring it out with a little ruler. It's simple. So 34.5%. Let's have our font size be equal to, and this isn't going to be exact by any means. I'm just throwing this in here and just taking it by eye what it looks like to me. Font weight, and we will say font weight is bold because those look bold in comparison to the other fonts there. Let's do a text alignment of left because that's aligned left, and let's do a little bit of padding on the right, maybe. I don't know. Do I want to do? I'll do a little bit of padding on the right. Let's just say little, 3 pixels. That I'm not even certain that I want, but I left it in there anyway. And what else do we need to do? Well, the individual border, or these guys right here, these individual items have borders across the bottom, so let's go in and target those as well. And those have the name of nav bar link. Where are they? Here they are. Nav headline link, this guy right here. So let's go in and style those specifically. Nav headline link. And what do they need to do? Well, they need to have a border on the bottom because that's the way they look on the screen. We'll just go 1 pixel, and that's going to be solid, and then we'll get our little gray that we have up here. There it is right there. Copy that, take it down here, paste that in there. Got that set up. And then they need to have a little bit of a padding on them. So let's just say 10 pixels again, stick with what we've basically been doing, and 10 pixels, and there we are. And that brings us down to the last child element down here. This one doesn't have a border on it, so it doesn't have a border across the bottom. So what do we do whenever we want to target that last child? Well, we just go and copy this guy. We'll say the last child element of this class type. So last child, see, pretty simple. We'll just set its border width to 0 pixels. And that will get rid of the border only on the last child element for those links. What do we need now? Well, now we have our nav links. That are going to be these guys over here. So we need to style those as well. So go nav links. And how do we want to style them? Well, we're going to have them be display inline block again because that worked good before. And what is going to be the width for each of these? Well, if we zoom in here, you can see it's 11.95. So 11.95%. They are going to be vertically aligned to the top of our little element section, and text aligned, they are text aligned to the left. So we will make them text aligned to the left as well. Not much else to do there. What else do we have? So there's our Nav Links. There's Nav Links. There that is. And then we can target our individual Nav Links. Let's just copy that. Jump over here. Class name, Nav Links. And what are we going to do with these guys? Pretty much nothing I can really think of. Let's go and reload this, see what happens. Reload. Nav Links. They're going to need a little bit of space between them. Maybe. I don't know. That's about all I can think of to do. So let's go and put a little bit of padding on the bottom, and we'll just say something like 20 pixels. What else do we have here? Jump over. Well, as I'm looking at this, you can see it says more in the news here, and see, more in the news, and there's nothing up there. So I'm going to have to jump back over into my HTML, and let's create another div where it says investigations. Just throw that inside of there and paste that in there. And this guy I'm going to give a specific name. I'm going to call this Nav Empty Cell. Okay, and it's not going to have anything in there. It's just going to take up some space. So Nav Empty Cell, and why don't we do a little bit of styling on that so that we'll be able to fit that inside of there. So right down here, we'll go Nav Empty Cell, and what can we do for it? Well, we can just do some padding on the top of it, and we'll just say 30 pixels, because I'm not sure. And if we look at it, you can see, whoop, see, more in the news, and it looks like it needs to go down just a hair more. So we'll go, I don't know, 40 pixels, and reload it. And that is about perfect. Maybe 41, I don't know, 41, 42, something like that. You get the idea. And there it looks like it's just about perfect. Okay, so there's Nav Empty Cell, which was something I didn't catch whenever I was first trying to think about what we're doing. What else do we need to do? Well, this needs to be red, and this needs to be red, so let's go in and make those red. So we'll go Nav and headline, link, and I want the first child in this situation as well. So we'll say first child is what I want to target, and I'll just make the color for that red, just like I did before. And then I can do the same thing for the Nav Link, which are these guys over here, Nav Link. I need to make the first child red as well. And reload that, and everything is looking okay. There's just some sort of error right here. And I think it figured out what it is. Nav headline should actually be Nav headlines. And let's save that. And that's Nav headlines, as you can see right here. See Nav headlines, and that's what was messing that up. So let's save it and reload it. And there we go. So there you go, guys. You can see right here, if I go and resize this, that it's automatically going to scale. So I can put that over that again. And if I scale it down even further, it's still going to scale. And it looks doggone close to what we get with the Boston Globe. So there you are. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Please leave your questions and comments below. And like I said before, I'm sorry about this, but there's no way around it until YouTube fixes it. If you want me to answer any comments, put them in my newest video, no matter what the question is, and I will answer them there. There's no other way for me to be able to get a hold of comments. So sorry about that, but it's out of my control. So please leave your questions and comments below. Otherwise, till next time.